Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of this country and those in the diaspora. Welcome once again to Moving Forward. Tonight, my program will have a dual purpose. One is to welcome the Foreign Minister of Taiwan, David Lin, to our shores as he is passing through on his way back home, having been in St. Vincent, celebrating the 45th year of the ties between the two countries. We are happy to have him stopping over in St. Lucia for a day on Monday. Hope that he will feel at home because of the support we also give to his country, like our friends in St. Vincent, more so Ralph Gonzalez. Once again, a special welcome from me to him. More so, he is a good friend of my friend, Dr. Joseph Wu, whom I'm indebted to, as he was the first to call me to his office when I went to the Institute of International Affairs, National Chenchi University, on my first research fellowship. So tonight, in David Lin's honor, I want to outline the beauty of that vibrant, independent country, which David is the foreign minister. Ladies and gentlemen, Taiwan, in all its splendor and glory, is without a doubt a beauty in this world of ours. It would be difficult to explain how green and luscious that country is, more so with its beautiful mountains, waterfalls, lakes, forests, which gives its visitors the feeling of being in paradise. You must see it yourself. I believe truly that if you have never in your life explored this natural beauty of Taiwan, then make every effort to. Without a doubt, it is luscious. External beauty is a sight to behold. As mentioned before, mountains, forests, waterfalls, lakes, and oceans are truly scenic. And then you have the pleasure of canoeing, arcing, cycling around these beautiful natural lanes and the beauty that lies ahead of it. If you want to know what paradise is, leave then. Go visit Taiwan. It is truly a paradise here on earth, and it belongs to the Taiwanese people and no other. Therefore, I bid everyone who can to explore the beauty of Taiwan before you leave this world, because it is heavenly. Many short films have been made of the country, but I heard still did not have the vigor and vitality of the country, and therefore, having been there on several occasions, I can vouch for that beauty. Here is a special bit more of that godly country. For 5 years, Taiwan has ranked #1 in the world for gender equality. They have been sending experts overseas since 1959 to help in the development of these countries. St. Lucia has been the recipient of this magnificent gift from Taiwan. Taiwan, without a doubt, is a country for keeping fit because it is a sporting and a keep fit nation, as they have all the natural environment. Thereby, it has excellent facilities. It is a sight to behold. Therefore, Taiwanese always exercise and is conscious of keeping fit, like walking through the forest is simply heavenly. Not only that, like St. Lucia, it has the warm pools in the mountainside, which culminates in what is termed paradise here on earth. There are all forms of activities to be found in Taiwan. When I speak about Taiwan glowingly, it is without a doubt because of their excellent medical facilities, which in my view, having traveled around the world, is one of the best I have seen. It is without a doubt a very highly developed medical facility, and in terms of insurance for national health, it cannot be surpassed by any other country. Added to that, each city has its unique features of transport system that is efficient and effective and therefore convenient for its people. There is no doubt that it has a vibrant culture. When one considers that 16 to 17 indigenous tribes have kept their culture intact. However, what you got in many areas is an intermingling of the cultures, which is one of Taiwan's attributes that make them unique and therefore one unsurpassed by any other in the world. Finally, I believe that everyone without a doubt should visit Taiwan once again in their lifetime, if it is at all possible, because not only that, but it is one of the safest and polite countries in the world. Added to that, one that is courteous. To an extent, it is hard to believe unless one visits that beautiful country. It was once called Ila Formosa, that beautiful country. Now back on the home front. I don't know whether to laugh with glee or whether to be so annoyed because of the morons we have as an opposition party who has been quite conclusively proven that they are not fit to govern now or forevermore. Before going into the nitty-gritty of my program tonight, I want to say to all listening here and in the diaspora how angry I was on the 22nd of October, 2024, when I saw outside the House of Assembly, what I saw outside the House of Assembly. It left me in a daze and somewhat speechless. Here I am in St. Lucia, the country I am a product of. From my birth, unlike those who say openly that they are a product of Canada, for me, St. Lucia was the place of my birth, an early schooling, and the place where I wanted to be a priest in my boyhood days, so as to help my countrymen and women, young and old. This was because of my mother's influence, God bless her soul. However, the one Most High had other ideas for me. I went to Europe after leaving school to improve my education. I was so proud of achieving my first degree, and that made my father proud. From there on, I got my diploma in labor studies and industrial relations, then went on to do my postgraduate certificate in education at the Institute of Education, London University. I was very proud as a St. Lucian because my thoughts was that others were doing likewise, more so those that went to St. Mary's College with me. One of my first lectures to adults was at Rumford College, and that was on travel and tourism because it was just becoming a subject for GCSE certificates in England. Therefore, I could not wait to come back home to help my own. I spent 6 years lecturing at Sir Arthur on the first and second year degree courses when it came into being in political science, African civilization, social psychology, and introduction to psychology. Atlantic World 1400 to 1600, and also 1600 to 1800. I also found time to be on Radio St. Lucia on different programs. My whole mode of thinking was to help educate those who were not as fortunate as I was. From there, I went on to further my education when doing my master's in conflict resolution, mediation, and arbitration at London University, and another diploma course in Asian Studies. Then later in my life, I became a research fellow, first at the Institute of International Affairs, followed by another at the prestigious Academia Sinica, both in Taiwan. Yes, I was a proud St. Lucian, acquiring knowledge like others before me. I mention all this because when I thought that we as a people were becoming more educated and civil, I was basically somewhat dreaming. Brothers and sisters, I was truly horrified by what I saw outside the House of Assembly this past Tuesday. This was an area when Alan, the Prime Minister then, the ordinary man could not cluster as a group when the House was sitting. Yet on Tuesday, there he was, encouraging his party supporters, whom I call morons, agitating on something they knew nothing about. And on his arrival, good Lord, they greeted him like the long-lost Messiah, and he was encouraging them in their animal antics. What a joker. Leader of the retarders, jackasses, barking dogs, with their leader having having encouraged his brainless supporters here. He was so lost in the House because he was astutely being torn apart on the CIP issue by the Minister of Tourism and Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. I therefore call on all St. Lucians to implant in their memories what took place in the House as he was astutely torn apart by the Right Honourable Ernest Hilaire, who made the statement that on March 21, 2021, an individual by the name of Kenneth Rijok, an alleged convicted money launderer, said in his writings in relation to the member of Mico South, which was quite a revelation for me. One of his articles showed his feeling about Alan Shastri when he was Prime Minister. The article was entitled, "St. Lucia Prime Minister's Criminal Misconduct Justifies His Removal and Arrest." Wow, I thought. This, in my view, was an indictment by a man who should know about criminal behavior. He went on to write, as alleged, that Alan Shastri's operation is comparable to the con man and the pathological type. The minister made it clear that it was from articles written by this individual. What was even more horrendous and important in the statement was when he said that after years, that crime and corruption is still the order of the day. This shattered every sinew in my body, and I immediately thought that this man wants to come back to build the modern St. Lucia, which was his theme song before the election of July 2016. All we witnessed was this guy reprobate, was good at knocking down instead of building. There are numerous amounts of knocking down that took place. He must remember that. Do we remember that he wanted to build a dolphin park, which was a dream of his father? Remember, the ladies and gentlemen, because the National Trust would not allow their part of what they were there to preserve. He decided to cut their subvention. Don't forget, the Derek Walcott House Museum also felt the brunt of his anger, and other parts of our institutions that had to be safeguarded for prosperity and culture. We must not forget that part and parcel of building a new St. Lucia was the destruction of the custody suite, as I have mentioned before. And not only that, the old prison, which in theory was an architectural and archaeological site. He's so stupid that he would not know how important these historical sites were, because he's nothing more or less than an imbecile. Going back to what the Honourable Tourism Minister had to say in regards to Rijok's article, he wrote that the then Alan Shastri operates on a plan similar to a former administration in the United States, where every cabinet official is for sale. Can you believe that? If the price is right. This is comparable, he said, to the con man's thinking that crime and corruption is still the order of the day. The question was put as to whether he can say that Rijok was right in what he said about him. It was also expressed that this same Rijok, together with Martinez and Alan, were now a trio trying their best to undermine this present government with their vulgar misrepresentation of the facts, to the extent that they were prepared to spread alarm and despondency, telling untruths about CIP because they had their axe to grind, which dealt with Galaxy under St. Kitts government. Well, there is a saying, birds of a feather flock together. What was intriguing in all of this is that Martinez have never had any dealings with this government or St. Lucia, yet in his RICO case, Mr. Claude Emmanuel was supposed to be one of the co-defendants. That is why he was so anxious and so interested in a minister from St. Lucia coming to see him to show what he had. nada he had. It was a simple trap of the con man or con merchant. He simply had nada about St. Lucia because, as has been alleged, all he knew was given to him by the opposition's cohorts. I want to express to all concerned that I felt relieved when Rejock openly said that Allen was a pathological con man. Maybe, just maybe, Allen had never heard the word before because he was later trying to enlighten us as to what a con man was more so a pathological one. Ladies and gentlemen, as was said by the minister, untold damage was done to some lawyers who were doing their jobs, approved by the last administration. There were articles written and statements made about those lawyers. These were the same lawyers approved as agents by the previous government then. Therefore, as the minister said, that was totally unaccepted and unwarranted when no wrong was committed by these lawyers. Therefore, this was a cheap, vindictive politics made by the leader of the opposition. He even attacked and threatened the jobs of employees. The minister made it clear that we were literally seeing cheap, vindictive politics by the opposition because they never approved the 14,000 applications. They have never approved of 14,000 applications. Nor was there $1.4 billion in the fund because of those applications. And contrary to what have been said about Galaxy, they have never received $1.2 billion. He made it abundantly clear that Martinez was only interested in destroying CIP funds. Hence the RICO case, which in the end will be seen as a sham as far as I'm concerned. My aim tonight was to have another program that dealt with other topics. But what we saw and heard by the deputy leader of the Labour Party in the House, and in the manner he made his case, without fanfare and without a doubt, literally demolish the United Records of the Poor, more so the leader of the opposition, who was in sight at one time. I say this in all sincerity. It was a demolition that was cool, calm, and collective, which is termed in the Collins Dictionary aplomb. Because of this, I am proud to say that the Honourable Minister, Ernest Hilaire, dissected his speech in a manner that was deliberate and methodical, and above all, concise, as he outlined the different phases of the CIP debate, not only in the House, but in the public domain. Oh yes, I make that statement in all sincerity. And I'm sure that most of you who saw and heard the program will concur with me that I am on the right track. I'll take a break and I'll be back. Welcome back to Moving Forward. In looking back, another issue that seems to have got up my nose is that here you have a deputy leader of a defunct party called the United Records of the Poor showing contempt for a reporter when he was a minister. He openly tried to belittle the individual when he said to him in an aggressive tone of voice and in an inhumane manner that he does not talk or take questions from a criminal or words to that effect. This individual is supposed to be a Christian and an elder of his church, yet he cannot forgive which the Lord asked us to do. Yet he was part and parcel of what Rejock described. This seems to be the individual's modus operandi when he thinks that he's going to be cornered by the reporter. This year we saw once again his ploy when he said to the reporter words to the effect that they should go and do their research, as he has got no time to answer the individual. He was virtually given the impression that the reporter's hair are lazy. He is, in my view, simply obnoxious without listening, when 80% of communication is to listen. Here he is given the impression that the level of questioning put to him is below his standards. Therefore, our reporters are simply dumb asses, pardon the pun as far as he's concerned. Yet this is the same individual who was prepared to believe and support a two-time jail felon who was imprisoned for fraud in 2 different countries, once in America, the other one in France. And further to that, an individual who calls himself a convicted money launderer. The individuals concerned were without a doubt alleged fraudsters, liars and con merchants, or men of no integrity, yet these were their advisors in the CIP saga. Is it because Martinez and Allen look white, and therefore that is what Guy Joseph felt comfortable with? One who owes a huge sum of money with his pretense as alleged film director, that's Martinez, when he is no more than a 4th-rate filmmaker conning investors right, left, and center? Is that what the upper echelon of the United Records of the Poor is comfortable with? Well, the whole scum structure of his is beginning to fall apart as he has suffered his first blow when the judge in the case in the United States made it clear, if the reading of the case is right, that this is not a case to be brought in the United States. We will without a doubt be blocked. The blocks will begin to fall. What amazed me is that the United Records of the Poor is simply desperate for anything to throw at the government, in the hope that if they throw enough muck, some will stick. Any man can make mistakes. Only a fool insists on the errors. And we are seeing that today. It is now day in and day out by the United Records of the Poor. They never seem to learn by their mistakes because they insist that they are correct to the extent of making even bigger fools of themselves because their lies are never ending. Well, they have miscalculated because, and instead, what is happening is that they are now making asses of themselves, together with the television stations and reporters who aided and abetted them with that alleged fraudster Martinez. This individual seems to be the spreader of lies and blatant dishonest, a charade that has taken place on CIP. Oh yes, listening to what was being said in the news certainly brought joy to my heart, because without a doubt, we are beginning by seeing what is termed the domino effect, and it is in the pipeline taking place. Martinez, I'm sure, at present, is looking for a hole to throw himself into, because the one he dug was not deep enough and is certainly crumbling underneath him. Without a doubt, acts of defamation of character will be thrown at him. And when he's sued on that basis, he will be looking for an even deeper hole to hide. However, before I go any further, tonight, let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Oh, Father in heaven, once again, although I'm late tonight, we come before you to ask or beg for you to give our Prime Minister, Philip Joseph Pierre, the help and strength he needs to make St. Lucia a country that we can be proud of. We were once an example to many, more so in the Eastern Caribbean. But this reputation was somewhat destroyed by the last government because all they cared about was not your people on the whole, but just family, friends, and foreigners. When you gave Moses the 10 Commandments and you made it clear to your son Jesus that it was very important that your followers love thy neighbor as themselves. Yes, that is what your servant Philip believes in. And he is all about. He never looks at the individual political background because he's a great one. If that was so many would have, if not so many would have been moved from their present positions. He never moved them. He cared about all the people and not just some who voted for him. Therefore, Father, be at his side as he tries to put the country on the right path in becoming a country that you, Father, will be proud of. I believe in you because you are, without a doubt, the Prince of Peace, the King of Kings, and the Lord of Lords. Amen. Tonight I quote from the Bible, Isaiah verses 12 to 16. The Lord says, I will bring you lasting prosperity. The wealth of the nations will flow to you like a river that never goes dry. You will be like a child that is nursed by its mother, carried in her arms and treated with love. I will comfort you in Jerusalem as a mother comforts her child. When you see this happens, you will be glad. It will make you strong and healthy. Then you will know that I, the Lord, help those who obey me. And I show my anger against my enemies. The Lord will come with fire. He will ride on the wings of a storm to punish those he's angry with. By fire and sword, he will punish all the people of the world whom he finds guilty, and many will be put to death. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Oh, tonight, as I mentioned once again, as I dig further into what is happening in and out of our small island, I'm simply amazed that many of us are so blind that we cannot see because of an opposition that distorts truth from fiction and good from evil. Ladies and gentlemen, I just cannot believe nor understand how an individual can become a minister and then a prime minister and then having been kicked out of government is still leader of his party and opposition, which in theory did upset true party supporters. They realized that this individual was not a true party and conscientious supporter or of the party. They realized that their so-called leader was without a doubt a con merchant because the lies never stopped. What was amazing is that this individual was quick to tell the country the meaning of a con merchant as he wanted to throw this at the present prime minister, when in truth and in fact, unbeknown to him, he was talking about himself. What an, as I will say again, an imbecile we had as a prime minister of this country. Yet he has the audacity to throw the con merchant tag at the present prime minister, when the majority of the high echelons of his party have simply become themselves con merchants. However, what was so annoying is that these individuals tried their best to implicate St. Lucia and somehow tried to tie in, as I've said before, poor Mr. Claude Emmanuel into the Martinez RICO case. Well, that will certainly backfire because, as I've said, the RICO case is beginning to fall like what is termed the domino effect. They will without a doubt suffer the consequences of being involved with such a character. I am sure that many in St. Kitts will be out there suing this individual together with MSR, MSN, and others. The findings on the last case came out on the 11th of October 2024. Well, The deputy leader of the opposition party talked highly of Martinez, didn't he? That convicted fraudster. And if we recall, he was the same one who did not speak to criminal reporters. His deputy. Further to that, now the same deputy wants to call the present Prime Minister names in regards to his ability to govern. We must never forget when he said in the House, "Oh, now you are crying. Well, you have a lot of crying to do." What a moron and nonentity. Yet this is the same man who paid $1 million to have a report on St. Jude that few have seen. This is the same man who was involved in the Pajora letter, but has the audacity to call the Prime Minister retarded and wicked. This is the same man who built a box that was to be transferred into a hospital. This is the same man who was involved in the fiasco in the road building up north that had to be redug because of the inefficiency due to a simple, appalling project manager. And as has been alleged, who was also the contractor. That is the same man who was involved with the PPP project at the airport, that the Labour Party, on relinquishing government, left behind. This was thrown out with the bathwater because, or I should say dirty bathwater, as far as they were concerned, because there was no money in it for some to put their hands on. Therefore, was it not the same individual who said that if he had to build 10 schools for his wife, he would, but he did not tell us with whose money he would do that? This guy is also a narcissist like his leader, without a doubt. In all the insults thrown by Guy at the Prime Minister, what did upset me is when he said that we are in a puppet country, especially when we have a retarded like this as a Prime Minister of this country. This, in my view, is uncalled for. And he was talking about someone who is better qualified than him. And even with the stutter he was born with, speaks far, far much better than this individual or his leader, who made so many faux pas in his pronunciations. There are so many things that has taken place to convince me that the deputy leader of the opposition is so pathetic when this jackass should not be talking about Labour's failures, if there was any, but how, if elected, they would fix it. The proof of the pudding is always in the eating, because they were in power and they were 50 times worse than this present government, who is putting so much back in place because of what they neglected to do. He then went on to say how the veil of blindness is so rampant when you are a Labour Party supporter. Yet he forgets that he was part and parcel of that Labour Party, to the extent that he was the General Secretary for the South East branch when Manisa Rambali was then the representative for the Labour Party in government and a minister. Does Guy forget all these things? And also how he lied about the amount of buses that the eye could see. He also forgot that he lied in a big way when he said that the coaches were full of supporters. Oh yes, comrade. Supporters who were paid and could not vote as alleged. On another occasion, he thought that he was a psychologist when he outlined that as a child growing up, he understood the psyche of an individual like Musa. So because he did not agree with him, he thought that he must be wed He talked about the amount of land Musa's family had, and it is there. I did not see the relevance of that. He even made that statement that Musa is a madman. I thought then that I did not hear that, because he sounded honestly like a moron and a jackass, as his leader calls them. More so when he said how anybody can vote for Philip when you have a person like Alan. Comrade, as far as I'm concerned, there is a sickness that you are struggling with, and that is color blindness. He continued on, the Prime Minister, when he said that Philip seemed to be more concerned with the need to protect the victory. He alluded to the fact that if he wants to protect the victory, then he should perform and deliver. Isn't he performing and delivering far more than y'all did? It showed how shallow he was, because he simply forgot that when they took office in 2016, St. Lucia was at the top as far as the Eastern Caribbean was concerned. It is through them, their time, in office, that the country plummeted to the bottom because their policies were horrendous. What I want to ask this guy is, in the deals they made with Galaxy, was it not discussed that 1,000 Chinese workers were allegedly to be coming to St. Lucia to deliver on the project building the hotel in Canals? I will stop here and I will come back. Welcome back to Moving Forward. In watching one episode in the House, when Stephen King rose to speak about the old Royal Jail, which Alan broke down, without those who should be involved, like the National Trust, who was not aware of it. This in itself is a violation of the assurance that any work to be done on the old prison would have been informed to the National Trust. Well, that never did happen. As King made clear, the structures for the Royal Jail, the custody suite, and other buildings on the ground were demolished. He even went on to say that the UWP government loves to break down, but never build in return. That ex-prime minister seemed to love bringing down structures rather than fixing a slight hitch. He broke down more than he fixed. He was not about helping a stranger in the rain. Many structures of government were broken down because his party breaks down more than they fix. King gave the impression that they were lucky to be in the House that day, because at least it had not been broken down like others. I had to laugh. Well, that brought a wry smile to my face, and many others. In the midst of all the propaganda, misinformation, and deliberate lies to cause alarm and despondency, the Prime Minister made it clear that work is going on at St. Jude, and they are going to be finished soon. He reiterated that new staff are soon to be on training for St. Jude. What Alan Guy and their merry men and women failed to tell us is that when Kenny left office in 2016, The hospital was almost 90% finished. The question is, why did Allen's government, with Guy in charge, did not finish the process? Well, I want to say to Guy that there is something that I learned, and that is, any intelligent fool can make things bigger and more complex and more violent. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. Your box, good man, for St. Jude, was a clear example of that. And Philip, the genius and the man of courage, chose to go the other way, and which I'm sure the whole of St. Lucia will greatly applaud him when St. Jude is finally opened. Guy, I will tell you this, that Philip is not as retarded as you think, because you're too dumb to see. And that he is a thinker and not an individual who talks shit like you do, or crap. He has nothing to prove because he's a builder and not a destroyer. Ask your leader how many hotels he built in this country. Go and ask him. Comrade, I can tell you simply, nada. Well, Philip, in his time as Minister of Tourism, built 5 and more. As the Minister of Infrastructure, did far more than you to improve the road network in this country, and others like the port, etc. He, in my view, was able to be the best Minister of Commerce we've ever had. That is in my view. So, Comrade Guy, put that in your pipe and smoke it. I'm an honest man, and I have nothing against you personally. But as you know, I know more about the charade that went on with St. Jude, because on coming from Taiwan, on my first research fellowship, I brought you some documents on St. Jude. I'm sure that this is at the back of your mind. Ah, well, I would like to hear the answer, but many are of the opinion that they had other plans of their own. And as has been alleged, it was looking at means and ways to make as much as they can in delaying the process due to handouts. Now they are on Owen King's hospital. The insensitivity that is going on, failing to show empathy with the patients. It seems as though there is no coordination in their thinking and strategy. Therefore, it tells us, especially me, that they're looking for a needle in a haystack, in the hope that they strike gold. What a bunch of mischief makers we have in our politics. Sarah had the guts to open her mouth when she said that the government has long-standing issues with doctors, and to the extent 4 top doctors have since resigned. Sarah seemed to be concerned about those doctors that have resigned. However, she knows that they have resigned for their own reasons, but continue to utter sheer tripe. 4 senior consultants, she said, have resigned over the last few months, and that there is a mass migration of nurses. Ah, well, her vision seemed to be narrow. Sarah, please, do your research, because this is happening in many developed parts of the world. It is an acute problem right now. What was so pathetic was when she said, I can only say what I have heard, honestly. I simply fail to understand how these people want to get back into power. Their modus operandi, I think, has now gone to the gutter level. Tonight, before we close, I want to say something that the majority of St. Lucians will be acquainted with, because it has to do with our diplomatic friend again, the Taiwanese. I want to point out to every St. Lucian that in one way or the other, we have all benefited by the help they have given us in our development. Therefore, I believe that we should all stand up to China and say it in a loud and conclusive voice, that Taiwan is not only a democracy, but a vibrant one. And therefore, it should be treated and seen as such. The idea that keeps floating about is that it is part of China. That, for me, is sheer poppycock. and in many people's view, a fallacy. Although there are some who are afraid to say so because of the retribution from China. I believe that leaders of the countries who have broken relationships with Taiwan because of pressure put on them by China should ask themselves one simple question as to whether the Chinese Communist Party, which is the CCP, have ever ruled Taiwan. The answer will be a resounding no. The other question is whether Taiwan is a communist country. The answer too would also be no. Therefore, why does China want to claim Taiwan when without a doubt it is a democracy and a vibrant one at that? And again, have never been ruled by the Chinese Communist Party. So this must be instilled in persons' thinking. In a book, as I said, that I wrote on my research fellowship in Taiwan, which hopefully will soon be published, titled, Why the Democratization of Taiwan is an Impediment to a One China Principle. In the book, it is clear as daylight that the two are not one and the same. A clear example of that is to look at the culture and identity of the two countries, which in research, having researched in depth on my second fellowship at Academia Sinica, it is also clear that the Japanese are also much closer to Taiwan in the sense that they ruled Taiwan for 50 years, from 1895 to 1945. And it was the victory of at the Second World War by the United States, Britain, and its allies that the Japanese had to relinquish Taiwan. I'm putting all this forward because there are some who seem to be bemused by the Chinese Communist Party in the propaganda that Xi Jinping and the CCP wants to propagate as they make threats of attack so that Taiwan will succumb. Let us not be fooled. And those three countries in the Caribbean, the three states that supports Taiwan, must shout louder than they do at present. I believe that we are too passive in our support for Taiwan. Regardless how small, it will be heard. There is no doubt that China is paying their agents to do their dirty work in these countries, but the people know full well that many of the work done here by the Chinese in the past was basically shoddy work and what is termed tofu work. Taiwan is without a doubt one of the leading countries in the world as far as new technology is concerned and AI is concerned. They did not get help in that respect from China, but that is what China would like to have in its arsenal so as to bribe other countries. We only have to look at how a thriving country like Hong Kong was being taken over by China, and that was 25 years ago before the date due to complete. Today, Hong Kong is slowly deteriorating, and at present want the CCP out. So at this stage, I'll take my next break and I'll be back. Welcome back to Moving Forward. And continuing on, I want to say that we only have to look at Beijing and Shanghai. That is now becoming ghost cities. Unemployment is now rising at a fast pace, and youngsters who are well qualified cannot get jobs. Why? Because you have a leader who, in my view, is useless and wants to outdo, because he wants to outdo Mao Zedong in popularity. But history is not on his side. He is not about the people, but about self. Tonight I have once again brought this to the fore because it seems as if some are not conscious of what Taiwan is doing for us, more so in improving the lives of our young, etc. I am of the view that this country, together with the other two, should be more vocal, as I've said before, in their condemnation of China, as never before. Our government and people have a lot to learn from Taiwan, and therefore we must consolidate our friendship more strongly. We have to show satisfaction in what they have done for us. And the only way to do so is by giving them strong vocal support throughout, and not just in the UN or WHO, etc. Now back on the home front very quickly. Something that our opposition party should now ask for is forgiveness from the young people. Because in 2002, the then NDC chairman, who was no other than Michael Chasney, made a statement that information and technology are directly linked to the development of this country. Yet, when a laptop program per se was put in place by the Labour government between 2011 and 2016, it was the United Records of the Poor, led by his son, who discontinued the project. Looking back, he was on the right track. That is, Michael, especially when we speak of information technology and the role some of our established industries, more so the then NDC role in promoting the process. We are without a doubt lucky, therefore, to have Taiwan as a diplomatic friend and who is prepared to help our youngsters in that direction, as they are one of the top, if not the top country in the world in information technology. Michael Chasney then called for an expansion of our education based on the latest computer technology. And strangely enough, that is what Taiwan is doing on many fronts at this juncture. So a new dawn has certainly arrived because God, in his infinite wisdom, has sent the Taiwanese head to be of help to us. Therefore, we must cherish that bondage and hug it more tightly. There's more evidence that our prudent and courageous Prime Minister is putting the country back on course. He is, in my opinion, very astute and will without a doubt turn out to be one of the best Prime Ministers not only in St. Lucia, but in the Caribbean in years to come. When I look back, I had my doubts with some chosen in certain ministries, as I believe that a shuffle was necessary then. That is my thinking. However, I do believe sincerely that honesty is always the best policy and truth must be forever on the throne. I want to say to the Prime Minister personally that it seems as if those who now want to speak about CIP are clearly the alleged experts of the corruption they knew existed within the CIP program. Now that their friend, the fraudster, has been found out in his RICO case in America, they are now turning to crime in this country. I said to them that they have turned the light off because the truth is plain to see as people's eyes are now opened. And it was closed before while they were in power. Philip, without a doubt, is winning the hearts of the people and not alienating anyone. The interest of the people and the country is paramount to him. When looking back, his predecessor wiped out all that was sacred about the Sir John's party, and more so, the insults that were made to his family. There is no doubt in my mind, Alan has destroyed all that was good about that party. When one looks at Philip compared to the opposition leader, the difference is clear and concise. Philip shows quality leadership, namely greater tolerance than Alan ever had or acquire. Philip has a greater loyalty and greater kindness, without doubt. Philip is a man of integrity, which is sadly lacking in the leader of the opposition, more so when he was Prime Minister. Only a blind man would find it difficult to see. Alan is still showing the type of leadership that he was not that good leader. He did not tolerate collegiality in leadership and in work. He acted not through persuasion, but imposing his concepts and demanding absolute submission to his opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, in St. Lucia and in the diaspora, we must rediscover who we are and what life was all about until Allen came on the political scene. All we now see in opposition is an exceedingly serious perversion of party principles that was so important over the years. There's without a doubt some of the party who are becoming nostalgic for the past. What we are beginning to see is a horrible display of animal antics being displayed at their party conferences or discussions in the manner they throw insults at the government ministers. It is the lowest form of communication that I have seen. It is simply crass and unwanted. In a book I read, artist John Ruskin asserted, as reported, I believe that the first test of a true great man is his humility. I don't mean by humility doubt of his power, but really great men have a curious feeling that the greatness is not of them, but through them. For most people, humility has to be earned. It is developed over time as you accept your weaknesses and give grace to others for theirs. I bring this to the fore because apart from being very touching to me, it really depicts people like Philip, Maroc, Stevenson King, Mallet, J.M.D. Bousquet, and a few others. However, I cannot say that I have seen one in the United Records of the Poor at present. At this juncture, when we look at Alan Guy, Dominic Spide, and a few others in that party, not one of them is humble because of their demeanor, and their attitude to those who think differently to them. Yes, I know it is all about politics, but much of what we hear and see is not about policies, but it is somewhat personal. This is way outside the scope of politics, but downright nasty and malicious. It is simply unbecoming and despicable the way some behave, and then they talk about crime and violence in the society when it is they who perpetuate the violence that has become a way of life. I said to all those who, through their language and tone, when speaking about another, more so for the opposite party, that one must never forget that it is the habitual quality whereby we live in the truth of things, the truth that we are creatures and not the creator. Many who get into the political top, at the political top, seem to forget that and also fail to realize the truth that our life is a composite of good and evil, light and darkness, the truth that in our littleness we have been given extravagant dignity. With this I end tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you once again, you must take care of yourself and to never forget that you were born black and should always be proud of that. So I say to you in all sincerity, God bless you all. And I say a pleasant good night and good night. Take care. God bless you.